Hello and welcome to the Shed Sounds Media YouTube channel. My name is Ian Beabout, and today I will be talking about yet another classic album request. Today I'll be discussing Donald Fagen, the Nightfly, the debut solo recording from one half of Steely Dan, namely Mr. Donald Fagen. So lots to say about this album, and I've spent a couple of weeks now absorbing it because usually when I do classic album reviews, I tend to talk about stuff that I'm very, very familiar with, but I actually just discovered this album within the past 6 months or so. So it kind of took me a little while to absorb it and understand where it was coming from. And I will say that also reading the liner notes included, which Fagen composed in 2002, the liner notes help a lot, and so does Wikipedia. Wikipedia has a lot of really interesting information on this album. So a little bit of background. Fagen was 32 when he entered the studio to record this, and he used a lot of the same producers and engineers and musicians who had worked with Steely Dan throughout the 70s. With one notable exception, of course, Walter Becker, who was Fagen's songwriting partner for that amazing stretch of albums that they did together. As such, this was a challenge for Fagen, particularly trying to write something without Becker. That posed a significant challenge for him, but also they were grappling with then new digital technology. Gary Katz and a few of the other engineers involved all took classes in digital recording in order to pull this off, and evidently Fagen got so frustrated with the learning curve that he threatened to throw in the towel many, many times throughout the creation of this. With that in mind, now that you know kind of the turmoil behind the scenes, it's rather remarkable that he turned in such a strong and kind of chill album, really. I mean, that's probably the main difference between this and Steely Dan stuff, is that there's almost no satire. Usually Steely Dan were known for extremely satirical lyrics and, kind of sarcasm and wisecracking and double entendre. But this album is very authentic. It's very real. It's very literal. And it's mostly about Fagen's childhood and his upbringing and the cautiously optimistic 50s and 60s America, with songs like IGY, which just paint this beautiful picture of optimism. I can kind of imagine listening to this album in a stressful situation or an uncertain situation and feeling soothed by it. The lines about what a beautiful world this will be, and the lines about being forever young, it speaks to a corner of my soul as a young adult. And at the time of recording this, I'm actually close to his age when he made this record. So there's a lot here for me to relate to once I dug into the lyrics and background of these songs. I love the song Greenflower Street. It's kind of instantly memorable and catchy. There's also the cover of Lieber and Stoller's Ruby Baby, which I very much enjoy. It has some of the tightest vocal harmonies that I've ever heard on any Steely Dan related record. Like these vocal harmonies sound absolutely fantastic. Same for the track Maxine, which Fagen says in the liner notes something about the background vocals are spitefully arranged. And I love the way that he words things like that. Like it it has such a sense of humor, but also authenticity. A song like New Frontier, which paints this image of, hey girl, come over to my dad's fallout shelter, and let's drink lots of good beer and listen to Dave Brubeck records and get ready for our future. After the bombing, the new frontier. I love this combination of optimism with anxiety. That seems to be the meeting point of a lot of this music, is anxiety but optimism in the face of said anxiety. Indisputably, the masterpiece of this album for me is the title track, the Nightfly. This is a song which, as you can see depicted on the cover art here, depicts this late night DJ who's suffering horrendous loneliness while having to bat around these insane calls about conspiracy theories and other such inane babble, but all while being this kind of hip jazz DJ talking to the people, this Gene Shepard type character. And I just love this song. I think it's a miniature masterpiece. There's so many little subsections and ideas going on. It's almost progressive. There's very little on this album, or indeed Steely Dan records in general, that I would describe as such. Maybe the title track for Asia. But there is maybe a progressive influence on the Nightfly, because it seems to have all these little subsections, and the chorus is my favorite part, because it totally sounds like it sounds like a jingle from like an old-fashioned radio station. And once again, perfect use of backing vocals to recall a specific time, a specific era, and a specific genre of talk radio. And I love it. Like there's so many qualities of nostalgia, but also positivity and looking toward the future with a sense of hope. And I think that that's a powerful thing. And really, again, like that sets it apart for me totally from the sardonic and witty Steely Dan records. And it may have even been the reason why this album took a little extra time to catch on to me, because I do think it's different enough from Steely Dan that it's totally its own thing. The Goodbye Look, that's a song that I don't necessarily enjoy while it's on. It's kind of one of my lesser favorites, but whenever I think about this album, it gets stuck in my head so much. Like it's almost the most memorable song. And then Walk Between the Raindrops, which is based on this Jewish folktale where I suppose a rabbi was able to walk home in a rainstorm and not get wet. And I love this idea of walk between the raindrops, and that being kind of the jaunty, quick coda on this record. So, after this recording, I guess Fagen had something akin to a quarter life crisis. I realized that quarter life would be more like 25. But he thought too much. He had too much to think during the making of this record, and he got out of the business for a while. He was he had to go through therapy and kind of figure himself out over the next 10 years before he returned to the stage. And as such, a lot of this material didn't get played live until much, much later in Steely Dan's kind of second period. It's a really special album, and I don't think there's anything quite like it. It's also expertly produced. It's so well produced that some might even say it's too clean, but I don't agree with this. And I know that there's some sentiment among music listeners that cleanly produced music is somehow dishonest. But this is something I very much disagree with, because I like knowing that the artist cares enough about their work to produce it well. And I feel like that's what you get with any Steely Dan or Donald Fagen related recording, is you get perfectionists who care a whole lot about the end product. And this is absolutely no exception. So I want to thank Andrew for recommending that I review this record. I had an absolutely great time with it. Again, I'm probably going to keep listening to it even after the review is finished and continue to discover more and more things about it. If you enjoyed this review, please feel free to leave a comment about how you felt about this review, or maybe your response to the Nightfly. Also, like the video. That helps give my work visibility within the all-knowing, all-powerful algorithm. And I would really appreciate that. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this. I'm hoping to keep on top of like upcoming releases, and do music reviews, stuff that's more, that's coming out now. Yeah. Also, I am going to include a link to my Amazon wish list should you wish to donate music to the channel. There are a couple of Steely Dan records on that wish list because I don't have them all. Most notably, I'm missing Asia, an album that I've heard many times and that I love, but no longer own physically. So yeah, if you're looking to support the channel with a donation, feel free to browse that wish list. Anything on there I would appreciate and would obviously consider covering and reviewing on the channel. All right. Thank you so much for taking the time to check it out. My name's Ian Beabout, and we'll talk real soon. Bye-bye.